It's Worldwide Wednesday on CNN Student News, not just in our roll call, but in the countries we're reporting on today. We're starting in Eastern Europe, moving to South America, stopping in North America, and heading to Africa. It all starts right now.
If Russia does not choose to de-escalate, if it is not willing to work directly with the government of Ukraine, as we hope they will be, then our partners will have absolutely no choice but to join us to continue to expand upon steps we have taken in recent days in order to isolate Russia politically, diplomatically, and economically.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry visiting the Ukrainian capital, speaking about Russia's involvement in Ukraine. It's a nation divided between people who want closer ties with Russia and people who want closer ties with Europe. The U.S. government has sided with the pro-Europe Ukrainians. But Ukraine is also important to Russia. It has Russia's only warm water port in the Black Sea. It gives Russian ships access to the Mediterranean. Russia says it will not fight Ukraine. But the U.S. says Russian troops have entered the European country and that it's considering sanctions against Russia.
As Russian troops push further into Ukraine, the West pushes back economically, not militarily. That's adding to the pressure on Russia's main stock market. The MySex tanked almost 11% on Monday, wiping the equivalent of $60 billion off the value of its biggest companies. And that's more than the estimated cost of hosting the Olympic Games in Sochi. While since then, the MySex has rebounded slightly. Meanwhile, the ruble has lost 10% of its value since the beginning of the year, raising fears of inflation and painful memories of previous currency devaluation. But that may not be a concern for President Putin.
He's perfectly aware of the cost it can have, over the next few years, right? In terms of, it could even trigger a recession, I would say. I'm not sure that he would be blamed for, let's say, 2% recession over the next 3 years compared to the rest of Ukraine or some part of Ukraine joining Russia.
For its part, the international community believes sanctions could be the best move. They calculate it will rattle Russia, but avoid war. Despite its oil wealth, Russia is increasingly reliant on the West. The country imports more than 50% of all its goods from Europe, and Europe is its most important investor. But if the West piles on too much economic pressure, Russian President Vladimir Putin could respond by cutting off Russia's oil and natural gas exports to the EU, with potentially disastrous consequences.
Across the Atlantic in Venezuela, the carnival season was not all celebration. Divisions deepened and violence flared between the government and those who want it changed. Venezuela's last two presidents have moved their country towards socialism, increasing the government's control. Some Venezuelans have seen better living conditions and education opportunities. Others have seen jobs dry up, the economy suffer, and crime flourish.
Opposition protesters are beginning to throw up these street barricades in preparation for potential clashes with government security forces. We can now see a lot of movement behind the security barricades. Riot cops on motorcycles are beginning to draw up. The protests in Venezuela are now almost a month old. They began as a call to the government to curb spiraling crime and also to rescue a tanking economy.
The government accuses these groups of being radical right-wing agitators. They say they're simply students.
Tear gas has been raining down for much of the afternoon, and now as night begins to fall, the students say that they fear that riot police on foot and on motorbikes will try and break through.
The potential for political turmoil to worsen this week is high as a divided Venezuela gets ready to mark the first anniversary of the death of leftist leader Hugo Chavez. He was a hero to some and a villain to others.
Carl Penhall, CNN, Caracas.
Now to North America. In the U.S. Capitol, the U.S. president has presented a budget. President Obama's proposal would spend just under $4 trillion for the 2015 fiscal year. It would increase government spending on things like roads and education and pay for that by raising taxes on people who make more than $200,000 a year. The president says his proposal would reduce the government's deficit and help the middle class. but Republicans say it has too much spending, too much borrowing and taxing, and that it would hurt the economy and cost jobs. Here's what's interesting. The president's budget has very little chance of getting through Congress. What it does is give Democrats points to debate as they try to hold on to a slim Senate majority in this year's midterm elections.
See if you can ID me. My official language is French because I got my independence from France in 1960, but I'm located in Western Africa. My borders touch Angola, Cameroon, Gabon, and the Atlantic Ocean. I'm the Republic of Congo, a nation of 4.5 million people.
Almost half of those people live below the poverty line. Unemployment in the Republic of Congo is 53%. That's why there's so much poaching, illegal hunting, in this case, hunting of endangered animals like the African forest elephant. Their tusks are ivory. It's a valuable material that poachers are willing to kill them for, even at the risk of the hunters' own lives.
It's been 8 grueling hot hours on this river, chasing poachers in the Republic of Congo's largest national park. For these eco-guards, disappointment follows disappointment.
When you put your hand inside, it's actually still quite warm, which means that they probably left early in the morning.
Finally, around a bend, signs of activity. Smoke rising along the bank. They rush ashore and fan out into the jungle. Within seconds, a gunshot. And the pursuit begins. The terrain is dense and disorienting. The men force their way through the undergrowth and slosh through knee-deep water. Our CNN team can barely keep up.
They've all gone forward trying to chase down what seems to be a poacher who, at least most definitely, is armed. They appear to have caught him completely by surprise.
Mathieu Ekel, head of the park's anti-poaching division, brandishes the weapon captured by one of his men.
The guy in front of him tried to shoot him.
There's elephant meat in the boat.
The men find the poacher's canoe, weighed down with fresh elephant meat. The nonprofit group African Parks, which runs Odzala, estimates that Central Africa has lost 62% of its forest elephants in the last decade. In this park alone, thousands have been killed in the last 5 years. In the week we spent here, we only saw one alive. The park, about the size of Connecticut, is patrolled by just 76 eco-guards. Not nearly enough, but some 40% of them are former poachers themselves. The eco-guards torch the camp to send a message. These men often find themselves pursuing people they once worked with, friends, neighbors, and even family members. In the ever-evolving fight against the ivory trade, out here, it's now personal. Arwa Damon, CNN, Odzala National Park, Republic of Congo.
On Wednesdays, as you know, we go worldwide for the CNN Student News Roll Call. We're starting today in Eastern Europe, where we're online in Serbia. Hello to all the students at the International School of Belgrade. Thanks for watching. Next to Baja California. It's part of Mexico. It's where we're happy to have viewers at the Discovery American Academy. And hopping over the Pacific, we're greeting everyone in Jeju, South Korea. We're happy to see you at Jeju Foreign Language High School. Yesterday was National Grammar Day, a day to encourage proper speech and writing. Why is this important? Well, there are obvious perils for anyone who works in an office. I love how they felt the need to label this to begin with. When it comes to dining out, some folks might not be lured in by starting anew with Alaskan Slammen. Parking is hazardous with unattended vehicles, and ride in a parking lot and you might be parted from your bike or your board. Finally, I just don't know where to start with this one. Everyone's free to make mistakes from time to time, y'all. After all, it's not the United States of Grammarica. I remember teachers telling me, ain't a word, only to find it ain't omitted from a dictionary. In school, in letters, on resumes, in articles, it's a fine idea to practice proper grammar. But if you tweet me not to end a sentence with a preposition, I ain't gonna write nothing back, because that ain't the way I like to be tweeted. Have a great Wednesday.